So poverty is an interesting word. Poverty is relative. Pentacles. Not so easy as swords. A little bit sort of, some of them are completely okay, but some of them are tricky. As I said before, I'm not going to go from one to the ace, or from two to the ace, just as they come. Two of Pentacles. Now, I'm going to start out by also letting you know that the Two of Pentacles can be when a person's hips are out. So they can have pain in one hip or the others because, of course, their body's out of alignment. Another thing this is typical of, it's usually got to do with some form of partnership or some form of sharing. So it's a two-way street. And very often when this turns up, particularly to do with families, relationships, or shared money, I'll go, what part of this is not obvious to you? And they'll say, what? I'll go, it's out of balance, 60-40. I thought you signed up for 50-50. And they'll go, I did. I go, no, it's 60-40. See, because the pentacles are not even. So that one side's lower than the other. And that's allowing you to understand about the hips, about the financial scenarios of a partnership as well. The Two of Pentacles will turn up for this.
How do you spell that? Yeah.
This is why you record the sessions, so that you don't have to spell it. Bit of that. Okay, so just let me get my feet up. I did legs at the gym yesterday. It's really coming through now. Two of Pentacles is shared situations. You will get it with shared property. You'll get it with shared business. Part-time work, not full-time work as well. Part-time anything, not full-time anything. You'll also get it for somebody with a Four of Swords who's fucking lazy. So it's like, hey, can you clean your room up? Sort of. But it is partnerships and it is shared scenarios. It does turn up. For example, if you've got a Ten of Pentacles with it, you're in a shared situation to do with a dwelling place or a warehouse or a business property. I don't even know where to start with the Five of Pentacles. The Five of Pentacles can, if it falls, for example, with the Hermit card, it's ski season, particularly if it falls with a Knight of Swords. We're looking at the snow. And the Hermit is the mountain, and the Knight of Swords is going down fucking fast. It's also poverty. It can represent being financially cash-strapped. But it's an interesting one because I do a lot of business people, and it's very interesting when it turns up as poverty, insofar as people go into debt, and it's really chunky good debt. They know what they're doing. They play the market, so it can be really handy. If a person has got, for example, an Ace of Pentacles in Hokmah, or a lot of really productive star card in Hokmah, they've spent a fuck ton on their tech. But if a person's a photographer and they want really good tech, they're going to need to spend money on it, aren't they? They may even go into debt on it. But a person who doesn't spend the money on really good equipment might as well just pack up and go home. So if you want cheap shit, the Five of Pentacles may not turn up. However, if you need to recycle your tin from the tip to put on your house, the Five of Pentacles is your best friend, particularly if it falls with the Seven of Swords. The Five of Pentacles is also somebody who has been cast out. It can be extremely tragic. But if it turns up in Binah, that's an economic crash. This one turned up for 3 years before, from 2005. Over and over and over and over in the sphere of Binah. Binah, of course, has got to do with bureaucracies, governments, educational bodies, etc. This one's also going to turn up for somebody who's got a hex debt in Australia, and the hex is not in hexen. It's hex as in the sort of like the so-called help desk thing. So a person might be in $70,000 worth of debt, but they've gone and done themselves a degree in something. So poverty is an interesting word. Poverty is relative. This is going to turn up very definitely if it turns up in the sphere of Yesod. It's somebody who hasn't got sufficient eggs to be fertile. This can also turn up as a health problem when a person is anemic. So there's always something missing when this turns up.
Where would it be for an anemia law?
It'll fall in net cycle, it'll fall in Yesu. If it's falling in the sphere of Tiferet, it's going to be a lack of self-esteem. If it falls in the sphere of Chokmah, it's like I try to warn people, if it falls in the sphere of Chokmah, I'll go, please change your passwords. See, tarot has changed over the decades. As the world changes, so tarot will change. It'll teach you what it means rather than you having to think about it. And then you've got to be able to somehow take this huge, gargantuan, mighty leap into the possibility that this is something you have not seen before and you need to be able to place it somewhere. Because we're so dynamically connected to the matrix, we are given this information by the matrix, through the matrix before it occurs, through the mycelium. All of this is you go, oh, what's that? And then the event occurs. Always the event occurs. The Stargate and Dead Reckoning are really the most informative spreads that you can possibly have. The Stargate, sitting in the sphere of Hood, I can still remember coming for a reading way back in the day. Is a photographer. She had a big white van that was all decked up and she kept her camera equipment in the van. And I was like, oops, you've lost it. I said, where's your camera gone? It's locked up in my van, but the van was stolen. Okay. One of my favorite cards in the whole pack is the Nine of Pentacles. It is never a problem. Never. This is Tarot's concept of nobility. This is the person, for example, who lives in a tent but has Persian rugs. This is the person living in this great, huge Mongolian yurt. This is the person also who knows their territory really well. I have this for a lot of First Nation people. They know their territory, they know their language, that this person here has just worked out what's too much, and they won't have it. They don't have it. So it's from my point of view, it's always the knower. If I was reading somebody's cards and they had a Five of Wands and they had a Justice card and they had a Ten of Wands and they're moving and there's chaos all over the place and there's a Tower and there's a Devil card and there's all kinds of restraints and restrictions and Eight of Swords and the outcome's going to be this, I'm going to say it's all worth it. Because in the end of the moment, what they've done is eradicated all the complications. They may not have a lot, but what they've got is precious. Four of Pentacles can represent the deposit for a house, the deposit for anything. The Four of Pentacles can tell a person to sit on it. It can be similar to the Four of Swords like that. It's like, don't move, don't act, sit tight. It's limited financially. This can turn up for an investor. Investing in what doesn't really matter. It's somebody who's very aware that they don't, it's also they're very aware that they don't have much and they don't need much. It can be a very small place to live. But again, it's another wait card. It's another 4 days, 4 weeks, 4 months card. Maybe 4 years. You'll very often get this for a person who's done their master's and they're heading for their PhD. Then you can be so really cool for the person that you're working with, particularly if they're going through a court case with an ex-partner who's saying, I haven't got any money, I've got nothing at all. You've got this stuck away. Ace of Pentacles. And this is a quote. The aces are the roots of the powers of. So the Ace of Pentacles is considered the root of the power of earth. Just like the Ace of Swords is the root of the power of air. This is working on the Greek 4 elements, not on all the elements altogether, because you'd be here forever if you tried to work in all of them. Ace of Pentacles is never a little bit of money. Okay, I'm going to give you an instance when... There you go. Oh, there it is. Right, quick. Look at that. Do you know what that one is? That's wealth. And it's considered financial wealth. So I threw these cards out for this woman. And there was something else with it, because it would have been 3. And I said, oh no, that was right. It was in the centre. It was like that, or like that. It doesn't really matter which way. And I went, oh, you're coming into a whole lot of money. And they said, when? And I said, now, because it was in the Dead Reckoning spread in the first one of the so-called present. They ended up getting a lotto ticket, and on the Monday night when I was staying with my friend working seances, as we did in the day, of course, I got the phone call in the middle of the seance saying, you're a lousy tarot reader. And I said, why is that? She said, because I didn't win the lotto. But 3 weeks later, she inherited $135,000 from a woman she'd met twice. So that's your Ace of Pentacles and the Sun card. They don't come up very often, and people say they're going to win the lotto and this hasn't turned up in the middle of their reading. You're just like, why the fuck ask me that question? It's stupid. The interesting thing, you might need to know this at the moment. First time I saw that was for a DJ here in Victoria. That, bam, it was sitting right there in this very hockmar. I said Bitcoin, and they're on the blockchain. Similarly, this is going to be the outcome if a person's selling their house. In difference to this, or you make a little bit, or in difference to this, which said, oh, it's a fair exchange, or in difference to this, which says you're not going to come out with ahead. This one's saying you're acing it. You're acing it. See how it works? Coming out fair. Limitations on how much you get for the sale. You're not going to get ahead with your mortgage. It's going to be pretty much balanced, but you're going to have to split that money up with an ex-partner. That can represent the ground that you're living on. So it's actually very, very material. It's manifest. So it's not just money. It's wealth. A person can be absolutely cash-strapped and yet have a lot of assets, so they're considered wealthy, you get me? So it's not necessarily anything that you can play with your hands. I know people can't afford to buy a cup of coffee, but they own fuck tons of property and BMWs and swimming pools and islands. They go, can somebody please buy me a cup of coffee? Eight of Pentacles means work. That's all it means. Can we just say job, vocation, work, employment, and there's a couple of other terms that represent work, but they're not all going to Amazon and shifting boxes. Okay, somebody might ask, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm going to court, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and whatever else, and how's that going to pan out in the long run? Am I going to be okay? And this is the foundation that says it works. That's your answer. Okay.
Well, what would an apprenticeship look like, please?
Insofar as apprenticeships are of an average of 4 years. This is the actual work itself. So even if you're an apprentice, if you're on the job, that's your work. It doesn't matter where you are in the standard of growth and becoming or deepening and becoming wealthier with your understanding of the employment or the vocation you've chosen. You've still got to work your craft. And it's even the same with spellcrafting, if you wanted to know about that side of things, because even though you put out for what is required, and you put that out to the trees and the moon and the sun and the stars and the wind and the air around you, you've still got to do the walking. If you sit at home and think that that spell is going to come into fruition and you're not doing the walking yourself, and you're not doing all the research necessary and all the equipment necessary to create that new dwelling place, be the dwelling place an idea or a way of living or an environment or whatever, if you don't do the work, the spell won't work. So that just means work. And of course, work can just be variations of that theme, but when you see it, you'll hear the word and you'll see how that word fits in with what you're looking at.
Could it be study or upskilling your work, or like some kind of study or working on homework?
No. The work is the work. If you're studying, you're working. You know, but the studying is going to turn up with probably the Emperor card, which is to do with education. But the kind of education around that will show, because if it's Temperance card, you're working in the field of some form of medicine, or health or healing. The kind of work would depend on what turns up, but it just means work. So it's if you work, and it also is you're in a situation where, you know, this will turn up with a sex worker. It'll turn up if you want to say, work it, darling, work it. If a person wants to work on stage, even if it's an amateur works hard, because the word amateur, by the way, which we need to sort of get really clear at this stage, is based on the Latin term amatura. People think of amateurs as somebody who's not competent, but the word amateur, the expression amatura, the original aspect of the word amateur, means for the love of it. So a person can be as professional in their own right with their skill, but be an amateur. Yes? So I'm an amateur anthropologist. Does that make me less than competent? No, I just don't get paid for it. And I haven't got a credential behind that, but it doesn't make me any less a scholar. So you can, this word, for example, I've done lots and lots of the directing of lots and lots of huge big shows and some films. And they're all considered amateur productions, despite the fact that the amateur productions are bringing in hundreds of thousands of dollars. Because if you set yourself up as a charity, or for example, you set yourself up as an incorporated body, your work within that incorporated body is very professional, but you're still an amateur. Unless you cross the line and you go and get an ABN or a CBN or CRN. Can you sort of figure the difference? Knight of Pentacles. The Knight of Pentacles has a particular philosophy associated with it when it turns up as particularly the foundation or as an outcome. It says just take care of business. I really, really enjoy this particular card because quite often it'll turn up with somebody who's about to sort of enter into a venture. And if the Knight of Pentacles turns up in an auspicious position, like a foundation or an outcome, it said just do the work. Everything else will follow. Everything else is destiny. The Knight of Pentacles is so productive. It's also trucks and vans and caravans and caravanserai and large vehicles. It's the person who works with a trade like a builder, a mechanic, a person who transports vegetables from the farm to the factory. It's the person who knows how to do the farming. It's very much sort of, because it's Pentacles and it's of the land, it's earthy. Can you sort of get it? Hear that one? Okay, so it's very much an organizer as well. The person with this, not this, but the person with this is the organizer. The person who fits with this is like the one you want to have put your roof on. The person you have that turns up with this is the one with the Ace of Swords who knows how to grade your road into the property. And they also have the grader, you see. This is the person setting up a business. This is the person says, am I going to change my job? No. Because the Knight of Pentacles is indicating that they're good at their work, so they might as well keep going. And that one there, it'd say, you're pretty much doing the work that you need to do for the next 4 years. Got it? Okay. The Page of Pentacles can be a time sequence if it falls with the Empress card. It can be the time of Taurus. There's a couple of variations that happen with this, but you'll get it. The Empress card, it's going to fall in as the time of Taurus. If it falls with the Hermit card, it's the time of Virgo. If it falls with the Devil card, it's the time of Capricorn. Usually they'll turn up as a time sequence in your cycles of threes. Or they'll also turn up as a time sequence if in question time, which is every 7th card. It won't necessarily turn up, for example, in a Dead Reckoning spread as a time sequence. It's also a child of the sign of Virgo, Capricorn, or Taurus. Now, it can also turn up as a new business venture in its infancy, in its youth. All the pages can be new or developing projects. So again, if the Page of Pentacles turns up with the Knight of Pentacles, with the Four of Pentacles, you're going, okay, well, just bear with it, be patient, take your time, solidify it. If this turned up, for example, with the Page of Pentacles turns up with the Knight of Pentacles, to the point where you are becoming your business, for example, you're setting up a unique jewelry business. Okay, so what you're doing is that you're setting the business up to be a quality business, not quantity. You're not going to be making silver jewelry and chucking them in a shop in the middle of a supermarket and go with everybody else's stuff. You're going to put together an exhibition. It says you need to have the refinement, right? So that's your Page of Pentacles pretty much. Your Queen and your King, here they come together. A person of the signs of Virgo or Taurus or Capricorn, or very practical, earthy people. If they don't turn up with cards of detriment, they're somebody very, very cool at working with. Because you know they're going to get the job done. You see where we're going with the pentacles, 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 earthy, 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 earthy. It's just all repeating itself with variations of the theme. This is when you get it and you go, oh, click, click. Okay. So there's your earthy people. Or the people with strong earth in their chart. Like I got a Virgo moon. If I didn't have a Virgo moon being a Sagittarius with the fucking Leo ascendant, I'd never get a thing done. I can write lists. If somebody is building a dwelling place, this is your best friend. This is the person who knows what kind of brick and what kind of hebel, what's the best thing to clad your house with, what's the best kind of roofing, how to keep the tiles in place. This is your tiler. This is the person who knows exactly where to put your dam. I love this person when it comes down to that. They can usually drive a backhoe. Yeah. All right. Now, the 7 of...
Hey, Laura.
Yes.
Just with the Pentacles, I recollect with the Queen of Pentacles particularly that it can be a midwife also.
Well, I don't see that so much anymore. But that could be the environment that I'm in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be the environment that I'm in. It could, if it's anything that's turning up with an Empress card as far as a person and their work is concerned, it could be someone who's working with pregnancy, midwifery, fecundity. 7 of Pentacles. Now, if you have a look at it, you can see the person standing there looking back, looking at their crop and going, that was all right. Okay, so the 7 of Pentacles is definitely growth. This will turn up with people who are growing gardens. This will turn up with a person who's involved in business when they get to the stage that business is paying for itself. If it turns up with an Empress card, it's a pretty fucking fecund garden, I can tell you that right now. If it turns up with the Devil card, it's Cancer. If it turns up with any medical condition, any problem associated with the Temperance card, for example, and a 9 of Swords, then it's going to be a growth that may be a problematic growth, but not necessarily cancer. Which can be really handy if you've got some woman coming to you and she's got a lump in her breasts. I'm going to tell her to go get it checked and make very certain, but I'm also going to assure her that it's not breast cancer. So they're going to come away going, but they'll still go through their checks just to get to that stage. This is cysts. It's too much. It can be too much growth, like when I need a good wax. This one could also turn up with somebody who's putting on way too much weight. That's going to turn up in Gevara because it's an aggressive form of growth. It will definitely say a job well done. Well done. It's got this real feeling of like accomplishment and in a sound sense of like, I mean, the point of harvest.
What would it mean in Tiferet, Law?
In Tiferet.
Tiferet, sorry.
If you're underweight, and you're working with weights and you're working with sound growth like that, this is where you are very satisfied with the growth that you've got.
Got you. Yep. Thank you.
Yep. Particularly in Tiferet, it's a very, very good place to imagine this. If it's turning up, interesting enough, if it turns up in Keter, it's quite often a bother. Like you can see I've got a scar on my forehead. Well, that would have been this. That's a basal cell carcinoma. So any growths around the head, or when a person's having problems in association with jaw, that can quite often be the wisdom teeth getting out of hand. Again, depending on where it falls, but Tiferet, yes. If it's in Malkut, it's got to do with your garden. It's got to do with your Ace of Pentacles and your capacity to sort of like work the soil, whether that soil be your business, whether that soil be the foundations for a house, etc. When you put the 7 of Pentacles with it, it's not so much a house, it's definitely soil or a business, because you're definitely growing your finances or growing your tree of money in this instance, or growing your if somebody who's involved in ecology is planting out a forest where a piece of like exhausted land is lying, they're feeding the soil, feeding the soil, feeding the soil, they can stand back and watch the forest grow herself and get that sense of satisfaction. I get there with George Monbiot and that rewilding that they've been involved with throughout the world, where you stop the sheep from coming in and all the forests come back. That's this as well. Yeah? And as such, that could fall in the sphere of Netzach. But if it falls in the sphere of Netzach, it could also be the growth of a zygote, but not necessarily get into the stage where it's a fetus. Okay? Am I making sense yet? You're starting to get the feel, I can tell. All right, good, jolly good. Now, Three of Pentacles. It's an interview. Am I losing my clothing? It's got a lot of connotations to it, which it does include things like Masonic orders. This is like straight out of the Knights Templar fucking Golden Dawn phenomenon. This is the person who goes to the university heads and says, I want to do a PhD on dolphins. And the people in the university say, it's been done before. They say, oh yes, but I want to do a PhD on dolphins' vaginas. And they go, oh, well, that's very interesting. And see the person standing on the bench, they're taking the high point because they've done enough research to be able to confront the so-called people in authority, and they're doing the standover tactics because they know they're right. So the Three of Pentacles is interviews. This is what happens if you're going to go for a job. This is what happens if you're discussing real estate. This is what happens if you're discussing situations to do with your lawyer. All the cards around it will tell you the context, will give you context. This is why one card is stupid. It won't give you enough information. You need a passel of these puppies. It's not saying they're going to pass the interview. It's not saying they're going to be given the funding for their PhD. It's just showing that moment of interview. Six of Pentacles. This can be as much an attitude as a reality. When there's money involved in friendships, when there's money involved between anybody, you've got to be careful. Person's being paid, consider the person who's doing a paying in a different position to a friend. There's no Two of Pentacles in this. There's no part of what share don't you understand about this. It's like, I am either the pauper or I'm the payer. This turns up in relationships, I'm bothered. This is, Christ died for you, therefore you owe me. This is this sense of, if I pay you, I am your boss. If I pay you, you do. And I will get clients who, last week, a guy named Kevin, who had booked in before the last lockdown. Kevin paid his deposit for a reading. And then Kevin needed to cancel because of lockdown, couldn't come. So then Kevin contacts me again, and I sent them an email saying, can do nothing at the moment, sorry about that. That was what it was. Then they email me back, this is only last week. Kevin contacts me and said, I had to cancel back in X. I paid you a deposit. You were not able to see me. Because I paid a deposit, I need you to sort. It was just so condescending. And so I got onto PayPal and I returned the deposit. I said, don't contact me again. So if somebody pays you money, they're going to think you own you. It's a new age thing. It doesn't work that way. They wouldn't do that if you were a dentist. Just always remember the fact that you are a professional person working in a field that is very exclusive. Don't let them try and blackmail you or gauge you and make you think that you're less than important because they pay you or because they accept payment from you. There's just something off and dirty and rotten about that. It's paying and being paid. But with the Six of Pentacles, there is actually, look at the little dude there in the yellow, it's pretty much underpayment. This is somebody working for Deliveroo. Just above slavery, yes? It's almost the extremes of the Two of Pentacles. Whereas the Two of Pentacles can be 60-40. This is very much 90-10. Yep. Okay, Ten of Pentacles. Ten of Pentacles is easy. It's a rented or a leased dwelling. Can be living there, but it's not an owned home in the ownership type thing. Can be a warehouse or a workshop off the side of your house. Can be a studio that you're working from. Can be a studio that you're renting. It can be a building in progress. If it falls with an Emperor card, it's a building society. If it falls with an Emperor card, it can be a bank. If it falls in the sphere of Binar, it's a bank or a financial institution. Note I said it falls in the sphere of Binar, not if it falls in the sphere of Chokmah. If it falls in the sphere of Chokmah, it's your website. It's the doorway through which your money comes and goes in tech. Got it? Okay. That's your Pentacles.